quick. Have anybody heard of someone, a third party, going around checking garbage cans for the city?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Public
Doing
Works.
an audit. Yes, audit.
We're
Okay.
on YouTube.
We are going live.
Okay, thanks. You know, and I don't, you bring up a great point. And I have heard of some residents that's, well, I don't know if offended is the right word, but they don't appreciate people coming up past, through their driveway to check on their garbage can.
Right.
Yeah. We had a little conversation about that in reunion.
I don't know if, Councilman Mitchell, that may be something else we might want to talk about if there's a better way to do an inventory, an audit of our garbage cans besides what we're doing.
From my understanding, they're supposed to be doing it just from the streets. On the day of the pickup, you're supposed to have your trash cans out there, and then if it's not out there, then I agree it should be, going on the property. But
yeah, I don't think that's happening in every case.
right.
It makes sense, but it would cause a lot of trips since it's not garbage day the same day throughout the whole city. Is it everywhere in the city, or is it certain areas that have different days?
Yeah. Well,
Like recycling.
Yeah, it's different days.
Mm-hmm.
Erskine, you had a good meeting today.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman.
We're time, Mr. Chair.
Thank
We
you.
are. Go ahead and fire us up. All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our Tuesday, February the 16th council agenda session. I now call this meeting to order. Could I get a motion on the minutes, please?
Yes, of course I
Would you approve?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve with a proper second with no objections. The minutes will stand as approved. This afternoon, ordinances on final reading. We have a couple of planning items there that we did approve last week. Is there any questions or comments about any of these items on final read for tonight? Questions or comments about final reads? All right, I'm seeing no hands. We move down to ordinances on first reading. Madam Clerk, let's go ahead and read item 6A, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance so as to lift conditions from ordinance number 6120 for retention of easement from sanitary sewer and storm drain from part of the abandoned 1300 block of Anderson Avenue, more particularly described herein.
All right. Councilman Ledford, is this the one that you had a question about earlier?
Yes, sir. I think Phil has an alternate version B.
And it is referenced here as your revised version. It says planning version number 2 at the top of the page on there. That is the version with the amendments.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so Madam Clerk, how will you get that into our folder for this evening? Will you just send out a new folder?
I will switch them out, yes.
As
Not
in,
folder the agenda.
I'm sorry?
I will switch out the agenda.
Okay, but will that be in our old packet or will we have a new packet that I need to
It'll
look
still
for?
be in your current folder, just
Okay.
the agenda itself will be switched out.
Okay, all right. Thank you. All right, that moves us down to resolutions. Madam Clerk, 7D, please.
A resolution to amend resolution number 30614 for the purchase of 2 Stanley aluminum landing craft fire boats from Metalcraft Marine at the same price of $238,596.66.
Okay, I think we still had a couple of questions about this on our 9:30 call this morning. Could you bring Mar Sullivan in, please, Madam Clerk? And Councilman Byrd, while she's coming in, sir, was that hand a question or a comment?
Just a comment on an amendment that need to be made to that later on today.
Okay, all right. Let's see if Ms. Sullivan can clear it up for us. Good
Hello,
afternoon, Ms.
Mr.
Sullivan.
Thank you, sir. Yes, we just have a little bit of language change that we need. So instead of making reference to the GSA, we just need to take that reference out. Sorry, it's been a little bit of a problem getting this one done, but we're trying to get these boats for the fire department as fast as possible and doing them in an expedited manner means that we didn't always have all the right answers as fast as we should have. So I apologize, but
The numbers stay the same, correct? It's just,
Yes,
it's
sir.
just literally context.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
And the current caption does not reference GSA right now in the resolution. I think we've resolved that issue for you.
Great.
Okay.
Okay, so, well, given that, then is there anything that needs to be added or amended then to this current version?
The resolution reads without any reference to GSA right now, and it's from only the two Stanley aluminum landing craft boats from Metalcraft Marine at the same price of $238,000. So I think you're good.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Okay, so as it currently reads, I just want to make this very clear
Oh,
so that we're not coming back and rehashing it. We're good as it reads and the resolution is clear.
The current resolution 7D is clear without any reference to the GSA. Yes.
Okay, so if Councilman Byrd wants to make a motion tonight on this, He
And
would
I
just-
think how it reads now is no need for that, Chair.
Yes.
okay. I just wanted to clear that up. Thank you, ma'am.
no, thank you very much. Thank you,
All right.
Councilman.
Madam Clerk, you can excuse our guest. While you're doing that, would you read 7E, please?
Resolution requesting purchase order blanket 556370 for Target Vector Solutions be increased by $15,245 to allow training solutions for Moccasin Bend wastewater treatment plant to be added to the contract.
Questions or comments? All right, I'm seeing none. Public Works and Transportation, we covered these items last week in our Public Works Committee. Any questions? I'm not going to read or have the clerk read these into the record as they were read last week. Any questions or comments about anyone in particular? All right, I'm seeing no hands. Madam Clerk, if you would, let's read 7I under Youth and Family Development, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Youth and Family Development to enter into an agreement with public entity partners from July 1, 2020 to July 1, 2021 for the 2020 fund year liability renewal policy for an amount not to exceed $27,586.
All right, any questions or comments? If not, Jay, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Youth and Family Development to renew the blanket agreement with Volunteer Electric from October 1, 2020 to September 30, 2021 for the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program payments for the Office of Family Empowerment for an amount not to exceed $50,000.
Is there any questions regarding this? If not, I do have one. And we might need to bring Ms. Sullivan back in for this one, at least to point us in the right direction. Ms. Sullivan?
Yes, sir.
So I know Volunteer Electric doesn't, to my knowledge, doesn't serve within the city limits of Chattanooga. So these funds apparently are going outside of the city limits of Chattanooga. Is that correct?
I would like to call a friend. I would like
Okay.
to do the
Phone a
life.
friend?
Yes, phone a friend.
Go ahead. Who would you like?
Is Rachel Howard on the call?
It'd help if she would raise her hand, but if not, we can always look for her. Ms. Howard?
I do not see her.
I don't believe she's on, Ms. Sullivan.
Okay, well, that's fine. I'll There are occasions where we do need to have, where this comes in. I believe the answer is that we are the provider for this whole catchment area with regards to LIHEAP dollars, but I'll get that full answer back to you really quickly.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions while we got Ms. Sullivan from anybody? All right. Looks like you're free to go, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, council, if you would pull up your purchasing items for this afternoon and look those over. I think maybe there is just one item actually for tonight. Any questions or concerns about our one purchase item for this evening? Okay. I'm seeing no hands at this time. What about February the 23rd agenda? Any questions or concerns about our 23rd agenda? Nope. Okay. Future considerations, if you would pull that document up. We do not have a meeting on the 2nd, so we will have another week for items to accumulate on our look ahead. If you'll notice, the date is 3/9 agenda and beyond. So I could assume that some of these items will be on that 9th agenda, while some may still need a little bit more work. I think the Riverwalk is still on here, although I'm not seeing it at this time. I'm sure it's on here somewhere. Yeah. That may be one in particular that we're still waiting on some information. Any questions or concerns about future considerations? Very good. Hold on just a minute, council. I have pulled the wrong agenda back up. There we go. Okay, we have no departmental reports this afternoon. Councilman Gilbert.
I'm just curious. I know that on here is that demolition for the Head Start. Are they going to replace that Head Start? That North Chattanooga Head Start?
I do not have an answer for that question, but I'll be happy to bring Ms. Sullivan back in so she can point us to the right direction. Madam Clerk, would you bring Ms. Sullivan back in? We didn't want you to get too comfortable, Ms. Sullivan.
I'm so excited. Thank you.
Did you hear Councilman Gilbert's question?
I did, about North Chattanooga and Head Start and how we're going to handle Head Start there. We are not replacing that building, that old building. It's not being used now. So I can get you details on like the number of kids in the other buildings or anything like that might be helpful.
So in other words, they're not using it currently, so we absorb it somewhere else. Correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. While you're here, you want to give us an answer on the LIHEAP?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. We do. I was right, but now I have a better answer. That any address in Hamilton County is eligible to apply, and we serve as the fiscal agent for the entire county. So some residents are not served by EPB. They're served by the Volunteer Electric or Middle Tennessee Natural Gas and a handful of other companies. So we do have to have contracts with all of those. And we are getting vendor agreements with each whenever that comes up. So that is part of our service.
Okay. Very good. I see no other hands. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. Madam Clerk, you can excuse our guest. And now we will move into Economic and Community Development Committee. At this time, I'll turn the chair over to Councilman Oglesby.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Welcome to today's Economic and Community Development Committee meeting. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So approved.
Okay, if there's no objections, we will move on now to our resolutions. Madam Clerk, please let's start with 7A.
A resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a second agreement to exercise option to renew in substantially the form attached with Dardanelle Long for the lease of the barn at Brown Acres Golf Course for the keeping of animals consistent with zoning requirements at the address of 406 Brown Road on a portion of tax parcel number 1581G001 for an additional term of 1 year.
You good, Councilwoman Burrs? Just shake you. Gotcha, thank you. Madam Clerk, let's proceed to 7B.
A resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a first agreement to exercise option to renew in substantially the form attached with Chattanooga Hockey Inc. for the use of a portion of 1785 Reggie White Boulevard, identified as tax parcel number 145KE001.01 for an additional term of 1 year.
I have no questions and I see no hands, so now let's proceed to 7C.
A resolution to make certain findings relating to the Chattanooga Neighborhood Enterprise, Inc. Maybell 2 residential project, to delegate certain authority to the Health, Educational, and Housing Facility Board, and to authorize the mayor to enter into and execute an agreement for payment in lieu of ad valorem taxes.
Councilman Coonrod. Okay. I know she's good with this, so let's now move on to next week's agenda, February the 23rd. Madam Clerk, let's start with 7A.
A resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a donation agreement in substantially the form attached with Thomas W. Pop and wife, LaDonna S. Pop, for the acceptance of tax parcel number 110FC018 on Hamel Road, and to execute all documents necessary for the completion of the transaction.
You good, Vice Chairman?
I actually have a question on this, and I'm not really sure. Maura may be able to direct it, but it may be more appropriate for Blythe. I understand what we're doing here, but I have an additional question about Hamel Road as it relates to this parcel.
Okay, can we bring up Ms. Mora or Blight? Anyone out there who can answer this question for the Vice Chairman?
I don't see any volunteers yet. All right, Maura, we get you by default. Blythe's hiding. So I'm familiar with the parcel. It happens to be one in the worst area of Hamel Road where it's collapsing and slope failure. And I'm just wondering if accepting this is one step forward to being able to put in the more robust solution of Hamel that I know has been discussed about for a couple of years now, and that we're going to be able to move forward eventually on the repair on this. And I'm hoping that by us owning this parcel, it gives us a little bit more control in what we can do as far as the repair in this area.
That's exactly right, Mr. Chair. And I see that Blythe Bailey has joined us, so I'll let him chime in as well. But that is exactly why when we were offered to be able to have this property, we jumped on the opportunity to have it in our kitty just in case. And if nothing else, we can always use it as lay down area for any other construction projects, et cetera. But it is good for us to have as part of the overall solution. And Blythe may want to follow up on that.
Couldn't have said it better than you did, Chief.
None of us usually can.
Aw.
All right, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you both. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you for your support.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Seeing no other hands, Madam Clerk, let's proceed to 7B.
Resolution to make certain findings relating to the Reserve at Mountain Pass LP project, to delegate certain authority to Health, Educational, and Housing Facility Board, and to authorize the mayor to enter into and execute an agreement for payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes.
Okay, this item is part of our presentation, which is forthcoming. So With that being said, Madam Clerk, let's proceed to 7C.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Economic and Community Development to award up to $360,000 in home program funding to Chattanooga Neighborhood Enterprise, Inc. to assist in the development of the Maybell 2, a rental housing development located at 1715 Union Avenue, consisting of 47 units, of which 9 units are reserved for income qualified households.
Councilwoman Coonrod, you're still excited and enthused? All right, I'll take that as a yes. Okay, thank you. That concludes this portion of the ECD meeting. Now we will move on to our presentation from LDG regarding a pilot request. They have a very, very nice presentation for us. So Madam Clerk, if you would bring up Donna Williams and Joshua. Oh, Joshua. Is Donna with us today? I haven't seen her name. I don't see Donna here, but Joshua. Oh, Donna, okay. You switched over to panelists. Okay, great. All right, if you can kick this show off, Ms. Williams, that's okay, that's on me. If you can kick this show off, we'll go with this very exciting presentation that I know I've been working on for at least 3 years. So
You are exactly
if you
right,
would,
Councilman.
yeah, if you would give us an intro and then we'll go forward with the presentation. How you doing, Josh?
Doing well. Excited to talk about the project tonight.
Good, great. Okay.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Chairman Oglesby. You are exactly right. I went through my emails to see when we first started working on this, and it was the fall of 2017. So when you all see the robust nature of this project, there are a lot of people who've been working on this for quite a while. The Housing Authority, the community, Councilman Oglesby, of course, our team in Economic and Community Development, and more, and there are probably others, HUD, and there have been so many people who've been supportive to get us to where we are right now. And of course, LDG, the developer that is making the investment that they're making in the city. So I'll be happy to turn it over to Joshua. He'll give you the details of the project. And then if there are any questions that either of us can answer afterwards, of course, we're here to help, happy to do that. Thank you.
All right. Should I just share my screen? Is that what?
Yes, sir, please do. You got the controls.
Perfect. Can everyone see that?
Perfect.
Okay.
At least I know I can.
We're good.
Great. So thank you everyone for hearing me tonight. Again, my name is Joshua Haston. I'm with LDG Development. We're a company based out of Louisville, Kentucky, but I myself run our Tennessee office in Nashville. So you're catching me at my home. We're snowed in here in Nashville. So, but we're excited to talk about this project tonight, the reserve at Mountain Pass. As Councilman Oglesby said, we've been working on this project for a long time now. And we're excited about this $52 million investment in the Alton Park community. So tonight we're just going to talk a little bit about the project, what we have in store, and ask for your approval for a pilot to allow this project to continue moving forward. So, so just a little bit about it. LDG, we've been around for 25 years now, more than 25 years, and over that time, we've built over 17,000 units, similar to what we're proposing here. All the pictures you're seeing in the presentation are the level of quality that we build to. So we're looking forward to adding another 240 units in the Alton Park community. We want to be sure that we're long-term partners with the community and continuing to invest and bring up the neighborhood and just be a great neighbor. Part of that, we just believe that everyone deserves a quality place to call home. And so we're really excited about this opportunity. We know that now more so than ever, housing is in dire need, and we're looking forward to being able to bring this forward with your approval. Just a little bit more, this project is located in Councilman Oglesby's district, as he mentioned. We're pretty close to the Tennessee-Georgia line. And kind of, you guys may know this property because it's located directly across the street from the old vesicle plant. And so we'll talk about that in a second. Part of what excites us about this project is not just the ability to bring mixed income housing to Elton Park, but really excited about the overall neighborhood improvements that we're bringing in terms of infrastructure. So we'll be, even though you guys just repaved Central Avenue this year, so it looks great, we'll also be repaving and resurfacing Kirkland Avenue, which is on the back side of the property here. So we'll be resurfacing all the way to the nearest cross street, as well as adding streetscaping along Central Avenue along our frontage, and including or improving drainage throughout the property and preserving a wetland area. This site used to be the old Franklin Trotter Elementary, and so when the school was torn down, a lot of the infrastructure was just left abandoned, and so we'll be improving that and making it all better, as well as removing a lot of invasive species around the property. What we're proposing is 240 units, and we'll talk more about specific AMIs in a second. But that'll be, all the buildings will be 3 stories, and part of that is this community engagement that we worked on for many years now. Involved making sure that we were protecting the view sheds and the hillsides. You guys talking about hillsides earlier, so we're making sure that we're protecting some of the hillsides in this area, as well as the view sheds in the neighborhood, and maintaining some of that tree canopy along our borders so that we can continue to have a bucolic site. So beyond just building the property, we know that this site will help further catalyze economic development in the area. While it's being constructed, you'll have at least 200 construction jobs, and then another 6 or so permanent jobs on site in perpetuity. And we know that kind of what we've seen over our lifetime as a company is that we're oftentimes the first movers into a market. And so we see our project, now your project, as being able to further bring up the neighborhood and stimulate further economic development around in the community. $52 million attracts a lot of attention. And so some of the amenities in the property, we want to make sure that we're changing the stigma around workforce and affordable housing. We believe that everyone deserves a quality unit. Everyone deserves to live with dignity. And so we include a lot of amenities that maybe you wouldn't normally associate with workforce or affordable property. So beyond just having, again, these are units that we have built. Beyond just having high quality amenities and Energy Star appliances and porches and patios in every unit, we also have amenities throughout the campus, including community, including a clubhouse where we can have community gatherings within the community as well as within Alton Park. We can interact with the neighbors and bring people in. We have gyms, lots of parking. It is a gated property. So it would, again, be protected and safe within the area. And we want to make sure that we're furthering the CARTA network in Chattanooga. So we're making sure that we're connected to CARTA throughout the property and encouraging a lot of healthy living through a lot of bike racks throughout the community or throughout the complex. So specifically, and Ms. Williams alluded to this earlier, this project is going to be serving a broad range of incomes within the property. It's a 240 unit development. All of them will be 2 and 3 bedroom units. So 122 bedrooms and 123 bedrooms. And we're trying to make sure that we are serving a broad spectrum of incomes. So right now we're assuming 60 of those units will be at 30% AMI, which is really hard to build to serve an income base that at that level. Most of the units, 120, will be at 60% AMI, and then another 60 will be at 80% AMI. So you're really seeing a broad mixed income range. Just for people who may not be familiar with AMI or area median income, that means if you're a family of four and you make $58,000, you could live in this property and you could have an affordable rent. Right now, we're anticipating rents for a 2-bedroom between $860 and $1,050, and rents for a 3-bedroom between $1,000 and $1,150. Sorry, $1,030 and $1,150. So if you're in those income ranges, you'll be able to qualify and live comfortably in a safe, beautiful community. I guess a little bit about the timeline. So if you approve our pilot, we anticipate breaking ground this summer. So with that, we'll be able to start leasing up in probably late 2022 and finish completion in 2023. But what we're requesting this afternoon is a 16-year pilot on just the improved value of the property taxes, such that the property would still be paying the school taxes generated on the improved value. And so over that time frame, we're anticipating that it would generate around $1.8 million for the school systems. As a former teacher, I don't want to ask for handouts if it's going to hurt the school system, because that's the true way to really better a community. It's housing and education and jobs. And so what we're asking for is just that pilot, so we would be able to break ground and build this beautiful community and further bolster economic activity in the Alton Park community. And so with that, I guess I'll just say thank you for the time. I hope I didn't ramble too much. I'm really excited, and I'll just open up the floor to questions.
Okay, thank you, Joshua. If you can remove your presentation so I can see everybody. Okay, panelists. Okay, Councilman Vice Chairman Ken Smith. You are muted, sir.
Chair, old hand. Sorry, sir.
Old hand, okay. Then we have Councilman Gilbert.
Yes, will they be able to have Section 8 vouchers for these apartments?
Yes, sir. So great question. So that was part of the long process of getting approved for that. So those 30% AMI units will by and large be project-based vouchers that we've been awarded through the Housing Authority.
And one more, the 1.8 million, is that the entire pallet that they were going to receive that amount of money?
So I will stress that's an estimate. I'm not an appraiser, so I don't know exactly what the number will be. But yes, over the life of the pilot, we anticipate generating around $1.8 million in school taxes.
Thank you.
Okay, you good, Councilman Gilbert?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Now we have Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hey, Josh, thanks for the presentation. Quick question, when we talk about, that's an incredible investment in our community, 52 million is what I saw on your slide. Can you talk a little bit about how you try to source local labor, such as like our carpenters council and electricians? And do you like to be contacted directly? Do you work directly with our local labor force to try and put them into these projects? Because that's and also a further investment into our community that I think is really important for us to talk about when, especially when a pilot such as this is asked for.
Yeah, great question, sir. So I'm glad you asked. So LDG is a vertically integrated company. We have our own general contractor that builds all of our properties. And what we do with those is even though we have our own general contractor, we hire everything out at the subcontractor level locally. So there are a few subcontractors that tend to follow us around, but majority of the labor that we will hire will be local subcontractors. And that's part of kind of what LDG does anyways, with our long-term commitments. We want to make sure that hopefully this is not the first project that we, or the last project that we do in Chattanooga. So we want to make sure we're building up the labor force, as well as continuing to build up those subcontractors, and creating equity throughout the process. So what we've done in Nashville, for example, we had a hiring fair at one of our properties where we invited a lot of Section 3 employees that are people that live in our properties, but as well as working with the housing authority to invite their Section 3 tenants, as well as reaching out and broadening the housing authority's vendor base of approved vendors that we would then reach out to for bids. So long-winded answer of saying, yes, we will be hiring locally.
Okay, very good. Ms. Williams, if you would you put Josh and I in contact? I want to make sure he has a couple of pieces of information I'd like to forward to him to help promote local sourced labor.
Sure, we'd be happy to do that. And of course, you all, I think it was last week, I'm losing track of time, adopted, I think it was last week. The city's been working with the support of the council for a while on the disparity study. So the Office of Multicultural Affairs also will be working with LDG. And so Councilman Leffert, we'd be happy to do that. I want to say, of course, this is a type of project that we love, that we've been waiting for, wanting for. And I'm very appreciative of LDG's commitment to this because, as I said, we started our conversations in 2017, and it takes a long time and a committed developer who knows what they're doing to layer the financing to pull off something like this so that you can have 180 units that serve folks from 30% of the area median income up to 60% of the area median income. That is difficult to do. And we're very excited about the opportunity and so supportive. Thank you for the support that the council has shown us, Councilman Oglesby, the community, the Housing Authority. Councilman Gilbert, you asked about Section 8. So there's something called PBVs, which we say all the time, but let me explain. It's a project-based voucher. So there are people right now who have a voucher. It's called a mobile voucher. They have a mobile voucher. They've been approved by the Housing Authority for Section 8 housing. They're driving around asking landlords, will you take Section 8? Will you take a voucher? Will you take a voucher? And because of the heat in this market, both in the for sale and for rent market, a lot of landlords will not take a voucher only because the demand is so high in the private sector, on the private for market rate units, that it's just not feasible, financially feasible for a landlord to do so. What I guess it was 2 weeks ago, Josh, we got the approval, we got notice that the project-based vouchers were approved by HUD, thanks to great support from the Housing Authority. And that took a long time for us to secure those vouchers. And so instead of someone having a voucher that was issued by the Housing Authority, if they are eligible for a voucher, the units themselves are the vouchers. So the units that are set aside, those 60 units, you don't have to have a voucher from the Housing Authority. You just have to be eligible for a voucher. And that's the difference between a mobile voucher and a project-based voucher. The voucher is in the project, right? And you all, we probably haven't talked about this in a long time, but the last time I recall the Housing Authority cutting off the waiting list for vouchers, for mobile vouchers, they cut it off and because they had over 1,500 people waiting for a voucher. So these units are themselves vouchers. So as long as a tenant occupant is eligible for a Section 8 voucher, there's a unit for them. Up to 60. We got 60 PBVs from HUD for the project.
And if there are mobile vouchers, we will also accept those as well.
Good point, yes.
Okay, that's it, Council. Okay, we're good. Chairman Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Williams, this will be more for you. So this week, we're considering a pilot for a housing project
Yes, sir.
for affordable housing. And then, of course, next week, we'll be considering one as well. My question comes sort of as the council as a whole. I guess trying to gauge and determine, number one, how many of these projects do we need, particularly that would be active at one time? I'm assuming that sort of falls under a fiscal responsibility, a financial burden, if you will. And at the same time, trying to balance that with affordable housing needs. And I would assume that there are other tools, I would hope, in the toolbox for creating affordable housing other than just giving a pilot. But what would you tell this council looking at the financial end of it? In other words, we are possibly considering putting 2 projects on the books that will be generating no additional income for the city of Chattanooga. Now, granted, it's providing some affordable housing, but not generating any tax revenue. What would you tell this council? How do we balance that with the critics or the people that might say we're just creating more projects that's not generating revenue?
That's a really good question. Not that you need me to confirm. You're asking really good questions. But so what I would say is that you're going to pay for it one way or the other. So either, I not everybody that I'm looking at has been contacting me and Councilman Oglesby and the homeless services team about the growing number of folks who are out sleeping outside in tents and on porches and back, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And in many cases, and I happen to know this because we have staff that every day is in contact with folks, and Councilman Oglesby has done a lot of that himself. Many of those folks, there are a couple things that I think are important to remember. Those folks are sleeping and living where they are because they don't have anywhere else to go. Now, why don't they have anywhere else to go? There are a multitude of reasons why they don't have anywhere else to go. Many of those folks, and many, we have the data to support this, of the folks that we're helping with the COVID relief, just on the rental side, I'm not even talking about the home ownership side. Those folks, the day they moved into where they moved in, they were doomed to fail. It was gonna fail because they ended up renting a place they could not afford because they needed shelter for their family. And that was all they could find. So they rented something that was as close to what they could afford as they could imagine. And in very short order, they would have been in trouble. COVID certainly did not help. It accelerated all of that. So I would say, and there's some, I can get you guys some national data that, we essentially we're going to pay for it one way or another, because there are folks, you guys may remember this. I don't know if Ms. Moultrie is on this call, but I asked Ms. Moultrie, how many people that worked for the city of Chattanooga would be eligible for low to mod housing? And my guess was 40%. She said, I don't know, I'll go find out. She ran the numbers, and 41% of everybody who works for the city of Chattanooga is eligible for low to mod housing based on their income. And the reality is that in Chattanooga, the incomes of folks here in Chattanooga, a service-based business in many regards, there are a lot of people who need housing. And it's just really math. They need it. And I get it. That's a very valid question as to is it better to pay for it in other ways, or is it better for us to say, here's a project that's going to have $52 million worth of investment in Chattanooga. The property, I forget, $4,000 a year, I think maybe was the property taxes being paid. But we'll still get that $4,000, but we also get $52 million worth of investment in 240 units of housing.
Mr. Chair, can I have a follow-up?
Yes, absolutely, Chairman.
Thank you. So you mentioned two things that I think, here's what this council seems to never get is the back end. In other words, the impact. In other words, we hear the projection, and you mentioned the homeless population. You mentioned, and we've talked about individuals living in motels as their
100%,
kind
yes,
of
sir.
permanent housing.
Yes, sir.
That this would be a solution. But here's what we never get on this council. We don't get the impact numbers of this is how many homeless individuals moved into this project. We never see, here's how many that lived in motels moved into this project. We never seem to get the impact that this decision has made for the long term. And I would love somehow to have a tool or a resource that would give us the impact of this decision 2, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, of how many homeless folks did we move into permanent housing, or folks that were in a hotel got to move into permanent housing because of the decision that we made. Is there a way that we could come back in 2 years and say, council, this was the impact of your decision?
Yes, if you all tell us what metrics you want us to track, then those metrics can be tracked.
Okay.
And the only bumpers I think we would have is related to fair housing. So we would be happy to do that. We just need to know from the beginning what we would be tracking. And as long as we stay away from fair housing, I think we can get you what we need. We can give you housing numbers about homeless individuals being placed by homeless services. I could probably get you that tomorrow because we do track that information.
Well, no.
Yes,
I'm talking about this project in
yes,
particular,
yes.
or even the Maybell that we're
Sure.
going to vote on tonight.
Sure.
I want to know what impact my decision is having on the citizens of Chattanooga.
Absolutely. If whatever information that you all would want, we would figure out a way to track that, understanding that people move and so on and so forth. But yes, we can definitely get you some information that may be helpful for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chairman. Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Donna, is it any way that pilots could be used to expand the territory to create affordable housing? Because it's the past few years, the ones that I'm seeing come before us, and I'm supportive of it, is that it's mostly concentrated in, inner city areas. And we know that affordable housing it needs to be across the city of Chattanooga. Like people can't, they say they can't afford to live in East Chattanooga. I'm not East Brainerd and different areas. And the pilots to me is just creating the continuing of the saturation of people that are living in poverty, just all stacked on top of each other. And I think we should be able to afford the opportunity for everybody in each district to have some affordable housing opportunities.
I would agree with you wholeheartedly, could not agree with you more, but the realities are, one, and I think you guys want to know this, but you all know this, but I want to make this clear because apparently there are a lot of people in the community who don't. The city doesn't own any housing. City owns no housing. We don't own any apartments. We don't own any buildings. If the city owns something, it's because people didn't pay their taxes. That's the only way the city owns property. So the 2,270 units, this council and the council before, 2,270 units of affordable housing. And when I say affordable, I mean income restricted housing, has been preserved or produced in this community. That's not counting, if you all pass this one, it's not counting the 240 units that we're talking about today. So 2,270 units have been preserved or produced income restricted housing. The city has, other than the pilots, the city has no money in those properties. And I think the last time I computed it, it was about $250 million worth of investment. And I will get the accurate number for you, not considering the $52 million that we're talking about today. So the number one way that we preserve and produce those units is with the developer's money. So the projects are where the developers can afford to buy the land, build the product, and attract the tenants. So I couldn't agree with you more. There also, which is a cost to the developers, the property has to be zoned appropriately. If it's not zoned appropriately, then the developer has to be willing to rezone the property. And that they do that very often to get us where we need to be. But the number one reason that there isn't income restricted housing in other areas is because of NIMBYism, not in my backyard. So there are folks who say, hey Donna, what's going on with this camp, and what's going on with this camp, and what's going on with this camp? We need more housing. We need a plan for homelessness, which, by the way, there is a plan for homelessness that was developed by a collaboration of people who do this every day. It's on the city's website if anybody wants to see it. But the biggest impediment to having housing in different parts of the city is folks' resistance to income restricted housing, which is known as NIMBYism, not in my backyard.
Thank you, Ms. Donna. And I gotta agree with you, but we're seeing now that the homeless camps are popping up in every district. It's not just concentrated in, the lower ends of the district or the districts that's been left.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a concern that, every council person need to be concerned with, because it's happening in their backyard too, like it's happening in ours, but it's more acceptable if it's in District 9, District 7, and District 8. And we got to get out of that mindset. If we're wanting to create housing opportunities for all, it shouldn't matter what district that is in, because we want to house people. It shouldn't just be concentrated in specific areas, which is going to continue to perpetuate poverty. But thank you.
And let me say this, Councilwoman, I think the other thing is there's income restricted housing in other districts that people don't know it's income restricted housing. If someone were to drive by this property and some other properties and other properties and other properties, they won't know that it's income restricted housing, because what they imagine income restricted housing looking like, it doesn't compute in their brain. So there's income restricted housing all over the city in every district. We just need more of it, and I could not agree with you more. We need more of it everywhere, because that it reflects the incomes of a population of our citizens that need to be able to afford the housing that they want to live in and that they can live in, fit decent housing.
That's right. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Councilwoman Kumrai. Councilwoman Burrs, you're muted.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Couple of questions, and while I'm asking Donna a question, could you bring Daisy on as well? I'm a follow-up to Chairman Henderson's questions. Donna, is the assumption that I'm for this project? It's a great project, and you're doing a great job with this. Is the assumption that people in the homeless camps will be moving into this project?
No, the assumption is anybody who's eligible, 30% AMI, 60% AMI, 80% AMI, that those folks would have greater choices.
All right. So
I will say this though, Councilwoman Burrs. There's one camp in particular. This is the camp in Councilman Oglesby's district that he's toured probably 6 or 7 times with the folks. 18 of those people, that the citizens that were living there, 18 of them are now in permanent housing. Our team worked with them to identify who was eligible and to get them, well, let me back up. Some are in permanent housing, some are in hotels waiting for permanent housing.
Right.
So there are people who do move into permanent affordable housing, and Cassie O'Neill and her team, they do a great job of that when we have enough units. Like when there are enough units, there are many people who are homeless that can be placed in permanent housing when we have enough units.
Well, I think I was just following up on Chair Henderson's question, and he was talking about what is the impact. So it could be that this particular project takes the load off so that people can move into other projects around. And I was just trying to figure out how you would be able to track impact, because it could be that that people move from one place to another, as you said. And I'm not sure, unless it's really longitudinal, we could track how many people are moving in, but we don't know whether they were on the street to begin with. I'm not sure how you do that. But anyway, it's a great project. Is Daisy there? Because that's the other part of your question, Chair Henderson.
She's
Ms.
not.
Madison?
She's not on the call.
She's not on call. Well, I think a part of Chair Henderson's question is longitudinally, what's the impact on the budget, on income, particularly in when we're so COVID restricted now? And I think the answer is not as big as you think it might be. And I wanted her to verify that. Is there anyone there that can verify anybody on from Daisy's office?
If I'm following the logic, if I'm following it correctly, what we can do is we can show how much property tax is forfeited on different projects. Now, how that compares to 240 people being unhoused or housing burdened, that's I think a value judgment there. But we certainly can track. There are some metrics we could easily track. I just need to know what they are that mean something to you guys.
Yeah, the cost benefit analysis, part of it's subjective, and that's cool. I was more looking for what's the impact, and it's a Daisy thing, so maybe she could get it to us offline. We have expectancies of monies that come in, and obviously we'll be getting the same taxes we've always had. When we do a pilot and it goes on for a long while, does the budget, because particularly when income is low anyway, is there any impact on budget, or do we have to go to reserves, or is it all moot because we wouldn't have gotten those taxes anyway? We're getting what we've always gotten. And I know that Daisy at times has commented on that. And I think that's the other piece that the chair was talking about. So we don't need to take it any further, Mr. Chair.
We can find out.
Yeah.
Because I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that if our director of finance could say, hey, yeah, this is a concern, but let me tell you what the impact is, because that's the other piece of the impact.
Sure. And the state of Tennessee tracks all of this. So we can get you any of those numbers, but absolutely I yield to Ms. Madison as to the impact of it, because as you all if you're familiar at all with Alton Park, you know that once you go down South Alton Park Boulevard, you make a left. There's just a row of empty, underutilized buildings. Those buildings are vacant. they're vacant. When you add 200, this is just for this property, there are consequences for all of them. When you add 240 people to this site, there are going to be people, Josh kind of alluded to this, there will be folks with resources that want to do something on that stretch of property. And those impacts, you know, it's hard to really quantify. I guess somebody can start tracking those, you know, from a particular radius from a pilot or however, whatever measures means something to the council. You just let us know what those are, and we'll track them.
Okay, is that it, Councilwoman Burrs?
Oh, yeah, I just,
Okay.
I think that that's the other part, and that's fiscal impact. Part of it's objective and part of it's subjective, and we hadn't discussed the objective cost benefit.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right. I've just been informed that Daisy is available. So Madam Clerk, if you can bring up Daisy, and then Chairman Henderson, I'll follow up with you because I'm thinking that Daisy might can address some of the things that you were inquiring about as far as the revenue generation or lack thereof. So there she is. You're muted, Miss Daisy.
Okay, hello?
Hi,
Hey,
Daisy.
Okay,
I had asked earlier about pilots in general. Chair Henderson had said there's a pilot this week and there's one next week, and he had asked about a longitudinal study tracking people. My question was more about the fiscal implications and the fiscal impact. So in general, I'm not talking about this project. In general, when we give a pilot, what is the impact on the budget?
well, the way pilots work is you are granting tax waiver for future taxes,
Sure.
not existing taxes. And it varies depending upon the terms of the pilot, as you can imagine. And so a lot of them phase themselves in, and by the end of 5 years, 10 years, they are back to paying 100%. But during that phase-in period, we do keep track of how much taxes would have been paid had the property paid at 100%. But at the same time, we are showing how much taxes would not have been paid had the property not been done in the first place. So it's sort of a, it's sort of a catch-22. It's one of those things you would not have. And that's why with a lot of pilots, they like the phrase, the but for phrase that says, would this project come here if it was not for the pilot? If you say yes to that, then you have foregone the entire amount. But if you say no to that, then you have lost even the pilot phase-in dollars. So each project, before you even enter into the pilot, you make a decision as to whether or not this incentive is necessary. If that incentive is necessary, then you are not losing taxes, you are just not getting 100% for the term of the pilot.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay. Thank you, Councilwoman. Chairman Henderson.
Thank you, sir. Well, the first question is, and I don't know whether Donna or Daisy can research this and find it out. I'd like to know how many housing pilots are currently on the book. Total, I mean, you don't have to now, but
of course we don't know.
total number and the amount of taxes, I guess, that we're forgiving each year. Now, I can remember asking just shortly after I came on in my first term, almost this exact question. And it's hard for me. I don't know how many of these pilots to give because I don't know how many of them we can bear. In other words, as we give these pilots, our level of service has to incline, but our level of revenue stays flat. So at some point, it is going to start, I'm going to say, costing us some dollars in the fact that I'm assuming we're going to offer fire protection. We'll offer police protection. I guess we'll offer garbage service, and whatever else, whatever other services come with being a citizen of Chattanooga. So those services come with a dollar figure attached to them. And as we see each year, they just get more expensive. But at some point, I mean, do we reach a tipping point or a breaking point of, okay, now we've given so many pilots that we don't have any properties generating revenue to pay for those services that we can be able to afford. So I guess the question has never really been answered to me. How many housing pilots, how many job pilots can this city sustain and still be viable? And that's the answer I'm sort of looking for. And my question was sort of a two-part. It was a financial impact, but also what kind of impact are we making in terms of making a difference?
Well, Councilman Henderson, I'm glad I didn't answer your question the first time you asked it years ago, because we would have been real wrong. I think when we all started our party, there were maybe 140,000 people in the city of Chattanooga. I think that was our number. Now we're at 180, all kinds of people moving in, all kinds of incomes. But what we're actually working on our annual pilot report. So I can get that to you guys before next week. So we'll have that for you. It will show, the pilot report will show the initial pilot when the city of Chattanooga adopted the housing pilot in 2002. It will go from 2002 till current. You'll see that some of those have fallen off because they timed out. We had one pilot where the developer gave us our pilot back because the market rate for the rents, they just changed their mind. They said, we'd rather get the market rate for the rent. You can have your pilot back. And we've had, as you well know, several that have come online since then. So we'll be happy to, we're working on that right now, and we'll have that to you probably by Friday. And it will show the amount of each investment. And then we can also show the amount of property taxes that were foregone. And once the pilot ended, in the case of this one, $52 million, we can let you know what that recapture, what that amount will be once folks start paying the full amount of the pilot. We'd be happy to do that.
Daisy, is there any way to calculate how many pilots we can absorb?
Well, you know, I was listening as you said that. The purpose of a pilot is to incent individuals or companies to come because you want economic development, or in this case, you want housing. And there again, you're really not losing tax. And depending upon, and I think maybe that's part of the thing you can look at in terms of pilots, if you think that it's the terms of the pilot, not the pilot itself, is the term of the pilot and which is most advantageous for the developer as well as the city. Because, you know, 20-year pilots, as you can imagine, I'm not crazy about. 10-year pilots are much more easier for me to swallow, because they are 10 or less. They are phasing in, so they're not giving up taxes that entire period. And but at the same time, they're bringing other things into the city that helps to build the tax base. The fact that we have good affordable housing, you bring in people downtown, you bring jobs into the city or whatever.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask it this way: are you saying that a housing pilot creates no burden on the budget?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the incremental increase. We have not had to hire new firemen anytime as a result of a pilot that we put into place. We hired them mostly because of, well, I don't want to talk to that, but in terms of the budget and the number of firemen and policemen that we have, they're generally not related to pilots. They're related more to density of population and that sort of thing. But yeah, it is it's hard to put a dollar on it. I think the guy that was here earlier used to bring before you what he called a fiscal impact of pilots. And he would bring them and he would show not only the income that's brought into the city as a result of, and these weren't necessarily just houses, they were houses and businesses, and the loss of taxes, the taxes that are brought in every single one of them, of course, the dollars suggested that we were better off. But now in terms of the services impact, I can't really make that dollar to dollar impact. Quite honestly, I could have a discussion with maybe public works and fire and police, but to make a direct connection between one pilot and the incremental impact of cost of services. Now, I say some of the TIFs that we're doing, they're not necessarily pilots, but for TIFs that we're doing, we make sure that we keep some administrative cost for garbage collection and the base tax that we had before. Of course, we always keep, but in addition to the pilot itself or the incremental tax, we keep certain administrative costs to cover garbage pickup and debt service. But that's on a TIF, that's not necessarily on a pilot. The pilots, as I say again, they are usually phased in. So it's not forgiven, it's a 10-year pilot, but it's not forgiven all the additional taxes for 10 years. It's phased in. Usually, what is it, 25, maybe 40, and then it goes to 75, 100%. I'm not exactly sure.
It goes 20, 40, 60, 80, 100.
Yeah, right.
But Councilman, another thing that I think would, given the conversation, would be more helpful and accurate if there are firms that do economic impacts of things like this. And if once you guys tell us, here are the things we want to know about, we can tell that the consultant, the economist, here are the types of things that we're looking to quantify. We'd be happy to do that, because my office, as I said before, we can tell you all the pilots that have been approved since 2002, the ones that have fallen off, the amount of each of them, the amount of housing that they generated, et cetera, et cetera. And then we can, depending on the factors you all would like for us to track with our developers and their tenants, we can see how that could be done. Again, not violating fair housing, to give you some idea. But the best answer would come from an economist who would do that. And there are people all over who do that stuff.
Thank you, Mr.
That's
Chair.
a great point. Before we move on, Josh, Madam Clerk, would you please release Josh, because I think we've gone past the actual presentation for today. So Josh, thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you very much for LDG's investment in my community. And we'll be taking this up again next week. So with that being said, Councilman Gilbert.
Yeah,
I see your hand.
Yeah, this might be a question for maybe Donna, or Daisy. We have property, we do pilots quite a bit, and they've been doing it for years. And some of these pilots have matured.
Mm-hmm.
So that now the person that had the pilot is paying the full price. For an example, if a property, say, was downtown and it's $10,000 for the property itself, somebody put a building on it that's worth $5.5 million now, and say they had a 10-year pilot. Well, the 11th year beyond that, instead of paying the taxes just on $10,000, they're gonna be paying it on $5.5 million. And that will generate a lot of money, because if it was still by itself and nothing on it, we might get $1,000. Now we might get about $20,000 or $100,000 a year. I asked this question before: how many pilots has matured, and how much money that now how much money we're collecting versus how much money we will collect if they would stay the same?
Wait a minute, maybe we can address it like this, Councilman Gilbert and team. Donna, you're prepared to give us you mentioned having a pilot's report Friday. I've asked the chairman we need to formally, so we can do that in a committee. So could you have that information to us next Tuesday? And I'll have an ECD meeting, since you said you're gonna have it Friday. This will give you a couple of extra days, and you can formulate those answers to questions like what Councilman Gilbert and some of my colleagues had referred to in a formal committee meeting next week.
Sure, be happy to do that.
Okay, Daisy?
Yeah, I'll just work with Donna and make sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll address these and any future questions we may have to get our update, because I had requested a update on our pilots, but the pandemic slowed all that process down. So now this is an excellent opportunity to get that update and answer any questions about pilots that we have right now. So Madam Clerk, we'll get with Nicole. Are you through, Councilman Gilbert?
Yeah, I've got one more question. I was listening to our chairman about the benefits and not getting money for services. But it's just like if a person has $1 million home and a person has a $30,000 home, the services are still the same. Because you put more money into the pot, you still get the same services. So I was listening and saying that, well, if you have a pilot, you're not really paying into the picture, which you're not. But everybody pays X amount of taxes every year, but they get the same services. Because I pay $1 million, if I have $1 million home, that don't mean that I'm paying more taxes, but I don't get no more services than I would somebody else would have if they got a $30,000 home. So I just want to put that in there.
Thank you, Councilman Gilbert. Councilman Byrd, thank you for your patience doing all this.
Hey, no problem. Thank you for recognizing me, Chairman. Donna, this is the problem that I have. I hear people talking about services, and it's not the level of services, because we have some of the most amazing services in Chattanooga, and I salute our city workers, fire department, police department. Their services are exceptional. They stay good, but their pay doesn't change. And that's what I hear so much. I keep hearing everywhere I go, every corner I go to, man, we need a raise. Our fire department, $15 million extra added to just get our fire department to where they need to be raise-wise. And you talk to these guys and the morale is tremendously low. And you're like, guys, I don't want you to feel like we don't love you or don't appreciate the work that you're doing in rendering these services. Then you talk to city workers. All we heard for the past 4 years, $15 an hour, $15 an hour, and you want to do it, but it's just not enough money there to get everybody to the level we all know they deserve. We know this, and that's the issue. The services are there. It's just that our people are feeling so unappreciated because we're not giving them the raises that they deserve. And then when you hear about a pilot coming in, which is an amazing situation, you say, hey, we're helping people and we're getting people to affordable housing and to a better place to live, and the housing market needs to help. And we understand that. But then our city workers are saying, well, we need help too, man, because our money is not there. We're not getting paid the dollars we deserve, or we should be getting paid. We're underpaid. And so I think that's a balance, or we need to be able to explain, when you hear a pilot, that doesn't mean that, this is the reason why you're not getting a raise, or why you could be getting a raise. I think we need to explain that to our city worker a lot better, because the morale is tremendously low. And then the other thing is, if this pilot didn't happen, that but-for test, if this pilot didn't happen, then they invested the money. How much would these apartments be if they just invested their money, built the apartments? I seen where you had like a 2-bedroom for $1,000 or $800, $800 to $1,000. How much would a 2-bedroom be if we didn't do the pilot? Would it be, what number would we be looking at then? And I think if people can hear that comparison, that'll help out a lot as well.
Well, I don't envy you all, because I guess that's why y'all get paid the big bucks. But it's the same with any budget. I mean, it's the same with all of our budgets. we have to decide with where we want to spend and understand the difference between spending and investing, saving. Those are all considerations that you as a council, certainly I don't envy that. So yeah, they're you got to slice and dice it. There's spending, investing, saving. I would imagine that it's the same for the council as it is for any business owner or for an individual. So I wish I could help you with that, Councilman Byrd.
I understand.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks, sis.
Thank y'all.
All right, Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. And this is my last question. I think that I want to choose my words carefully. And this is that we got to get people to the point of self-responsibility. And I can't stress that enough. Like, we're in 2021 and we still have people that's expecting to live rent-free, no matter where it's at. And we have to start addressing those root causes that's got people in that poverty mindset. Like, it's only so much the government is gonna do for individuals. So we could and of course, a lot of people can't afford $1,200. I can't afford $1,200, but that's why you become a homeowner, because that's affordable for people. But it's a lot of stuff that goes into that. I think this will be a great project for the area. We done kept this man on while we going through all our rantings and raving. I think it'll be a great opportunity to build that community up. I'm looking forward to, hopefully that it'll pass. I'm looking forward to seeing it. But Ms. Donna, my question to you is, how do we hold them accountable to the pilot for the things that they're saying that they're gonna do? For example, they made a great presentation, not him specifically, but they made a great presentation about Bayberry. And when you come, it's the same exact thing. Had us sold on, well, we're gonna keep these. They kept it affordable, all right, but it still looked like you're in a war zone. Nothing changed in the fact that they presented it. Now that's not, solely just on the developer, because the individuals that they're attracting to come live at this site, they have to do some work too, right? They have to change their mindsets and the way they're living in the environment. So it's not just the developers. If they're coming in and saying, we want to improve your area, we want to this, that, but if the people are not committed to seeing those changes, we're going to continue to see the dilapidated conditions like the Bayberry is in because of the mindset. So how do we hold them accountable to what they're presenting to us and what they're actually producing?
Well, super quickly, we have an agreement and then we have a contract. In that contract, it states what the developer is required to do. In the case of Bayberry, there's a learning lab and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we are required to do, by the state, we're required to do an annual review, which we do. It's been a little hard with COVID, but we do that. So, but your point is a good one. I mean, I think all of us may have people in houses in our neighborhood that look fabulous. They look great, regardless of how small they are, how large they are, how much they cost. And some people keep their property up better than others. It's just plain and simple. And the developers aren't social workers, but we do hold them to what they've committed to doing in an agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I guess Councilman Byrd, that's an old hand because he just spoke. One of the things, I guess I don't see any other hands, but one of the things we talk about what the impact is. For this particular project, I'm looking at the economic impact that it can bring to this area. Since this project was announced 3 years ago, I have gotten a number of inquiries about companies wanting to come over and do business in Alton Park. And communities like this, we need catalysts to revitalize and stabilize the existing neighborhoods. And we need a catalyst that's going to bring in small businesses. And projects like this can do that. And that's one of the intents. And that's why I supported it, because I supported it from a housing perspective, but I supported it from an economic impact perspective, because there has not been any interest whatsoever in Alton Park in forever. And since this project was announced, we've had some paving and we've had some inquiries and we've had a lot of economic activities surrounding it. You know, we've had the parks, the new Southside Community Park, then the 45th Street Park, you know, all has been injected with some energy. And this has happened, you know, in the past 3 years, not saying it directly because of LDG, but the economic impact of people wanting to bring businesses and invest in this community happened after this was announced of a project that potentially could happen. Now, it probably would have happened sooner if, you know, HUD and some of the other things hadn't changed in Washington, but as the landscape changed, it's making it possible for this to happen. And the community has been involved. Now, it was challenging in the front end, that's no big secret, but they have been involved in conversations subsequent to that. And they're going to be meeting to hold the developer accountable to what they say on the front end, because in the meetings that I have, that before anything significantly is done or any changes is made to the project, the community will be involved. But from my perspective, you know, this is an economic impact project as well as a housing impact project. And I'm excited that they showed enough interest and patience to endure during this time, because like I said earlier, this is something that had everything fallen in place earlier, people probably be getting ready to move into it. So with that being said, we'll be having a ECD meeting next week. Thank you, Chairman, to talk about the pilot, but this we'll have further opportunity to talk about this project next week also. So if there is no other comments following my statement, and Chairman, if there's no other business, I'll turn the floor over to you just in case there's something else you want to add to it.
No, I think you said it very well. Thank you, sir. And I look forward to next week's committee meeting.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Council.
Madam Clerk, you can dismiss our guest, Ms. Madison and Ms. Williams. Is there anything else that needs to come before the council at this time? Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. I have been bringing to the council's attention about the audit committee, and, you know, talking with Stan, he wasn't aware of that, if there were any brown or black CPAs or, you know, groups that he can get in touch with. And so I just need to know, who do I contact for the advisory board, because they have, not the advisory board, but the audit committee, because they do have a vacant position. It's been open since September when that person retired. And I've made contact with several brown and black CPAs that support different organizations. I have their resumes. I need to submit it to them so they can appoint somebody to fill that spot.
Okay.
Is Stan on our call, or?
Oh, it's, I don't remember seeing him on here. Let me look.
No, I don't see him there, Chair.
You don't, yeah, I didn't think I saw him. Okay.
So just email it to him. Is he the contact for the committee?
Well, he would be the contact, yes. Just
Okay.
email it to Stan and copy the council on that if you would.
Okay, thank you. And then one more thing, Chair. Who's over the mayor's council for disabilities?
Jennifer Crutchfield is the chair.
Okay, because I have a constituent that's a part of it, Ms. Carla Elliott, and she's been complaining about the lack of engagement with people that are disabled. She's very concerned, like her voice isn't heard. She feels as if she's being shut down when it comes to important issues. She's raising concerns about the disabled community being inoculated with the vaccine, and just running into all kind of issues with, you know, she feel like they're being overlooked and not being engaged with, and that kind of thing. So I don't know what all communication Jennifer and her have had, but if you all can get together, because she's having a lot of issues, complaints.
Okay.
All right. Councilman Oglesby?
Yeah, actually, I mean, she would really probably need to speak to Karen McReynolds in multicultural affairs, because Jennifer is like the volunteer chair of that organization. So from a staff perspective, it would need to be Karen in multicultural affairs.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's bring in Jermaine Freeman for just one
Okay,
second,
there he is.
Madam Clerk. Good afternoon, Mr. Freeman.
Hey, how are you? How are you, Mr. Chair? I just wanted to chime in on Councilwoman Coonrod's question. So the Mayor's Council on Disability actually has a new chair now. So Jennifer has rotated off. So there is a new chair. I believe her name is Cheryl Zuckerman. But I can make sure that Ms. Elliott has a chance to contact Ms. Zuckerman. And then I am happy to work with Ms. Elliott to make sure that her concerns are addressed.
Thank you, Jermaine.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that good, Councilwoman?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Freeman. All right, Madam Clerk, you can dismiss our guest. Okay, I'm seeing no other hands at this time that need to address the council. So we'll see everybody back at